All right, welcome back to the Optimistic Fan Club. Before we begin, I want to shout out a couple of our new super producers, our people giving over $10 a month. Neil of Neils, Anthony Evans, Eric Schonauer, Andrew Novak, Jake Sedlak, Hunter Wilkes, Rebecca Funk, and DJ Cafe Frog. Thank you so much for your support and helping make the show sponsorship free. If you want to join the Patreon, it is linked below. We have just put out a video about the state of leadership in Cleveland, the issues there. It's a bit of a rant, but you can go check it out. We're also going to put another video out later this week, kind of previewing the Dolphins game and what it means, because I think there's a lot on the line in that one. So go check that out for bonus content and to support the show. However, today we're going to recap the Browns and Steelers game a little bit more and just talk about some of the things that were going on within it. So I think one of the biggest things, the biggest takeaways that we saw from the game and after the fact, and the big thing that everyone is talking about now, is Myles Garrett, his comments after the game, and also his lack of impact within the game. Now, I don't usually watch really any other Browns content. When you're making the content, you don't really have a ton of time to absorb anything else other than like the national media, the stories, this and that. But my brother sent me Quincy Carrier's 30-minute video about it. I watched a bunch of it, and he had a lot of great things to say in terms of keeping Myles Garrett accountable for just his comments and his vibe and his demeanor in general. So go check out that video. I'll link it below. So much of it was very true. And just my own feeling towards this is just that Myles Garrett has never been this guy. He really has never been the person to set people's hair on fire. And he goes on these streaks where he's really making plays, and then he disappears for a few games at a time because they're running away from him. They're scheming away from him. They're doing all this. They're doing things that we've never seen in NFL history in terms of how to deal with a guy. You know, you're going against a tackle and a tight end. You're chipping him with a running back. It's a 3-on-1. Whatever. The biggest piece, besides the schematic way of stopping him, if you're being taken out of a game like that, you need to be the guy. You need to be the guy who can rally the troops and do something to inspire some sort of action beyond what is already taking place on the field. This moping and walking around and hanging your head and bad body language is just not going to get the job done. And this is something that I said in the Patreon video, so go check it out because it's more in depth and it's a lot more about Kevin Stefanski and just leadership in general in that rant. But one thing that came to mind was that through all the years of Myles Garrett being on this team, with him being the best defensive player in football, can you think of one soundbite of him saying something, anything to his teammates that is an iconic speech or even statement or phrase? Has Myles Garrett ever had a moment like that? And I'm not trying to say, this is not the vibe of it's the guy who stretches the hardest. I'm not talking about the guy who goes in warm-ups the hardest and who states all the platitudes and this and that to try and make himself seem more than he is. I'm not talking about that. Myles Garrett's the best defensive player this franchise has ever had. Everything that he says and does holds weight because of the talent that he brings to the field. So he could say anything and it's going to have a positive or negative effect. Myles Garrett has never, ever said anything that we can think of in our head and go back to and be like, that is leadership in action through words supported by actions on field. And I say this because, as I say in the video on Patreon, who do you think of when I say respect is earned? Ray Lewis.
Respect is earned. Respect is never given. It's better to be respected than liked.
Who do you think of when I say, don't ask me if I'm all right, I'm hurting, dog? Who do you think of? Ed Reed.
I'm hurt, dog. Don't ask me if I'm all right. Hell no. I put my heart in this, dog. Let's go, man.
There's all of these players, and it's not like a PR team that was behind it that pushed this narrative that is like, oh, that's a slogan that we can put on a t-shirt or on a coffee mug. It's something that came from the heart from those guys. That was a rallying call. That was a word to give for people to base their efforts on for that day or in that moment. Something that came out so sincerely that they could rally behind that and propel them to go forward. And with Myles Garrett, you know, this is, once again, I'm not going to keep plugging the video, but this is where I say that the leadership from the head coach needs to be greater, because even the best players need to be able to turn to somebody to have their cups be full, because you can't pour out if your cup is empty. That's just a fact in your life, in every facet. And Stefanski doesn't give that to his players. He's not that kind of guy. He believes that a player-led team is the best team. But once again, what about when your leaders, your best players, are subpar leaders or aren't world-class leaders, which is what you need to truly be great and what is asked of you when you are an amazing player? What do you do then? What you do is you go to the podium and you hum and you haw and you shrug your shoulders and you give off a negative vibe and bad body language and sulk. That's what you do. There's just no excuse for this kind of behavior. When things go bad, which they have been, if you haven't been paying attention, when things go bad with your team, are you going to be the person who pulls people up and out of the hole, or are you going to be the one waiting to get pulled up? And Myles Garrett, in year 7, making $40 million a year, and being the best defensive player that this team has ever had, is trying to get pulled up rather than pulling others up. And maybe it's different in the practice facility, but what you say at the podium to a national media carries weight, and your teammates hear about it. And then that becomes infectious. So that was the big thing for me, that I looked at all of that, all of the reactions. I just look back and I'm like, there's nothing iconic. There are plays, but there's nothing with his words that point to him being a great leader. This whole aspect of leading by example on the field, that works if you're a running back. You can be Nick Chubb and you can never utter a sentence. That's fine. That was fine when Baker Mayfield was on the team, because Baker Mayfield was the vocal, emotional leader. Nick Chubb can lead by example. Myles Garrett is the best defensive player in the history of this team. He cannot be a pure actions guy. He needs to be the rallying point, the example setter. And he just has not been that. And that's where my hope goes into the young guys, and particularly Carson Schlesinger. Like, I look at him and the way he plays. Your Mike linebacker, your middle backer, the guy wearing the green dot, needs to be the guy. But this is the tough thing with Myles Garrett being who he is and how good he is, that could limit this guy from taking over and being the leader, because you'll always be overshadowed by the fact that this guy's a Hall of Famer. I pray and I hope that Carson has the ability and the wherewithal to understand that he needs to be the leader of this defense, and that he needs to wear that and have everyone rally around him. Myles Garrett can fall into the background and he can do his thing if that is the level of accountability that he wants to have, because that's how he carries himself. He doesn't carry himself like he wants to be the face of this franchise or the face of this defense or the leader of this defense. He does not carry himself that way, because a Ray Lewis, an Ed Reed, a Patrick Willis, I mean, name any defensive great, they would not carry themselves this way at the podium after a loss. Would they be upset? Of course, because who wants to lose? It's like Eddie DiBartolo, like, show me a good loser and I'll show you a loser. I believe in that. I understand that. I think you can have grace when you lose, but you don't accept that. And Myles Garrett's done a lot of losing. But if you're going to act this way, you need to go to Carson Schlesinger and you say, look, man, you be the guy to give the pregame speech, because I don't want to be that guy. I just want to rush the passer. I want to win Defensive Player of the Year. That's what I want. Leading this defense, that's not really my bag, man. So you take over. That is what Myles Garrett needs to do if he's going to go to the podium and talk the way that he did after the Steelers game. All right, our next thing. So I talked at length on our live show on Sunday evening that dropping back your quarterback 58 times, having him throw 52 times, and only running your running back 12 times is not exactly a precise formula for developing a quarterback the right way. I mean, look at Baker Mayfield having these amazing games, these great stat lines, these big moments. He threw the ball 23 times when they beat the 49ers on Sunday. Dylan Gabriel threw the ball 52 times. And this whole narrative as well, where you're seeing people who you might actually respect in the media. Personally, until I've sat down and watched a game with you, or you put out a ton of content where it's like clear, I was like, okay, you know what you're talking about. You know, I don't necessarily like respect your football opinion. And I think that that's the way people need to carry themselves, because this is the thing with everything in life. It's like you put a lot more faith in people because of authority. There's an authority bias that people have where it's like, oh, you have a blue check or this or that. So you know what you're talking about. There's people out there being like, why do you think the Browns didn't run? It's because they couldn't block it up. That's why they only gave the best player on the team 12 carries. Okay, so this is the logic. We didn't run the ball because we couldn't block it up, and it kept getting stuffed for 1 to 2 yard gains. So instead, we dropped back 52 times, losing yardage in our drop back and potentially giving up sacks. And we could not block or pass protect or throw the ball. So we did that. That's the logic. We can't block in the run, so we didn't run. But we couldn't block in the pass, so we continued to pass. Even though at the end of this game, what was it, 23-9? Was that the final score? At a score of 23-9, you should be running the ball consistently up until there are 7.5 minutes left in that game. And then it's like, okay, now we got to start passing. If the game is that tight, you need to continue to run the ball. So that is just crazy that people are making this argument where it's like, yeah, they didn't run the ball because they couldn't block it. Don't you get it? It's like, yeah, we also saw this team against the pass rush with Herbig and Watt and Hayward and Highsmith. It's like, it's insane to me. That logic is persisting out in public right now. So watch out for those people. Those are wolves in sheep's clothing, as of my opinion. So that was kind of crazy. And I just think Kevin Stefanski just put his rookie quarterback in no position to succeed. We've seen it from like the Browns film breakdown guys, from Kurt Warner, like all these people, they've highlighted the shortcomings of this Browns offense. And I was resistant to it in a lot of ways because I do think a lot of it does come down to roster. Absolutely. That is undeniable. And that's a failure on Andrew Berry's part. That's a failure on the actual player's part, because sometimes guys get schemed open, but they drop the ball. Sometimes the throw is perfect and they drop the ball. Sometimes the throw is off and the receiver's open. There's so much that goes on with an offense that is left up to so many variables and individual decisions and performances within one given play. But I just do believe that when you're on the right page and you're being coached well, everything becomes easier. It's something that, again, I talked about at length, where I think that the fact that so few of our young receivers who have been drafted have come out and have been able to perform. The fact that we barely saw David Bell his rookie year. The fact that we barely saw Cedric Tillman his rookie year. The fact that we barely saw Jamari Thrash's rookie year. The fact that all of those things happen, and then they come out in year 2 and they're playing like they're in year 1. And then it's year 3 and they have not taken any sort of step whatsoever. I understand that you might have just missed on the pick, but a lot of the time when we go and we look at like missed receiver picks, it's like, oh, they just drop the ball when it comes their way, or they consistently run the wrong route, or they can't block. There's some sort of actual limitation that is put out there where it's like, that's why it's not working. But they got their opportunities. With the Browns, there's no evaluation whatsoever because they can't go out there and play fast. There was some, I think it was on Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show or something, where they showed that the Browns were like the 30th or 31st slowest group of receivers out on the field. And I believe that that's actually just talking about on-field game speed that is tracked through all their sensors and everything like that. And that is for so many reasons. It's like not using motion to get guys open, to do all these extra things. But to me, the biggest thing, it's the mental weight in what is going on and what is being coached. It's having to think way too much while you're out there on the field, which is funny and kind of contradictory because this is such a simplified offense. Like, they do not do enough. But it's clear that when you're watching these guys, they are not playing fast. They can't play fast. They can't play free. And I think that those are limitations that are brought upon them by the coaching, by the offensive philosophy in general. There's something within this mix that I can't put my finger on and I can't accurately define or clarify because I'm not in those meetings and this is all speculation on my part, but there's something going on that is limiting these guys from playing fast. And you can see it. It's like when you just turn the TV on, you look at certain teams and it's like, how are they just wide open down the field? How does that happen? And why does it never happen for the Browns? Why is the ball never stretched downfield? Even with Amari Cooper, when he was playing really well. The only time that this offense has ever felt fast was like when Odell Beckham Jr. caught the slant route on Monday Night Football against the Jets. That's just a fast guy running an open field. Other than that, man, this team has consistently lacked explosiveness. And that, I believe, is because of the philosophy and how things are coached and how this offense plays in general. So that's a lot of speculation, but those things are so evident and so persistent when you're watching this game, Browns versus Steelers. There's no stress put on this defense. There's just nothing working. And I think Dillon Gabriel, again, I mean, if you're just going to sit here and be like, he's not the guy, you're probably right, because most guys aren't the guy at the end of the day. It's like 95% of the guys who you think are going to be the guy or have a chance to be the guy do not turn out to be the guy. That's just how the numbers work. There's like 10 consistently great quarterbacks who are going to be the quarterbacks for the team for the next 10 years. Even other guys, like guys in year 2, Bo Nix. We got no idea about Bo Nix. He comes out, has a really good rookie year. Has he regressed? Is he not the same? Is it a sophomore slump? We have no clue. So we can't make these judgment calls being like, they got a hit and we didn't. We don't know. You want somebody who's going to ascend year by year by year by year. And then eventually 5-10 years down the road, it's like you're competing for Super Bowls. That's the ideal. The Pat Mahomes cases of the world are much rarer, but he was built up in a great ecosystem. All that to say, and I know that I say all that to say a lot. I think you can probably bank on Dillon Gabriel not being the guy. For in that case, I think you got to give him through the Miami game and through the Patriots game. And if you don't see any more of a spark, nothing that